Hi, good morning. Welcome back. So I'm Daniel. I'm also a father of three apart from working here. And usually when I introduce myself that way, I get the same kind of responses. People are either very shocked, very in disbelief, or maybe some of them who are closer to me might joke about it and say, hey, you are like some ideal Singaporean, you know, you're having kids early, getting married early, and have more than two. So this is something quite interesting because, again, I didn't work with Professor to prepare the slides, but somehow we both talk about the same thing, which is actually about the Singapore dream. So it's quite funny to me because whenever I hear comments like this, I have to wonder, is this really a Singaporean dream to have a family early and to have more children? Or is it just like a Singapore's dream to be self-sufficient in terms of its replacement rates? And I think I have an inkling of what the answer looks like for the younger generation. From a comment I received last year during one of the extended family gatherings at the Chinese New Year celebration, my wife's 15-year-old cousin actually saw her with the third one in the oven, and she exclaimed, 3 kids in this economy? As funny as it sounds, I think the phrase kids in this economy, whatever number in front that might be, kind of sums up what young people feel towards parenthood these days. And like our theme for this year, I think indeed family life is kind of on trial. Marriage and parenthood does not seem to be a part of the Singaporean dream. So in this year's survey, we at Cultivate set out to explore how Singaporeans look at marriage, parenthood, and success. We wanted to better understand how Singaporeans perceive success in life, or the Singaporean dream, and how marriage and parenthood feature in this picture of success. So to do that, we looked at how Singaporeans aged 21 to 45, whether they carry an orientation towards marriage and parenthood, and how, if there's such an orientation, or the lack of it, might impact their attitudes and beliefs or choices regarding marriage and parenthood. So we commissioned Pure Profile, a global data and insights organization, to conduct an online survey reaching 2019 Singapore citizens and PRs between ages 21 and 45. We have targeted this age range because this is broadly the range where people are getting married and having children. So our results showed that people with positive views and aspirations towards both marriage and parenthood are less likely to delay marriage. We also found that those who value marriage and parenthood more are looking at having a child as a more essential element within marriage. When it comes to what makes an excellent parent, the top traits are valuing safety, stability, and being an involved parent. While fathers and mothers are generally aligned in this area, we do see differences when comparing respondents across how much they value marriage and parenthood. And also, when we look at this, we think of whether being a parent is easy or not. A lot of people say that financial considerations are very important to them in terms of being discouraged to be a parent in Singapore. But for those who highly value marriage and parenthood, they are less deterred by the various kinds of factors we pose to them, and in terms of how much it will discourage them from becoming a parent. And when we look at the question on who will sacrifice more in marriage or in parenthood, about half of the women say that women will sacrifice more, while the men are a lot less likely to say so. And coming back to the Singaporean dream, the top marker of success on the overall is character related. And being married and having children, as I mentioned earlier, are indeed among the lowest of importance as a success marker in life for Singaporeans. But for those who highly value marriage and parenthood, their views are very different. So now I've already mentioned this term. You have heard me say those who value marriage and parenthood quite a few times. And this is quite important because when you read our report, which will be uploaded very shortly on our website, we use this term marriage and parenthood orientedness, or MPO in short, to describe how people are interested and aspire for marriage and parenthood. So we analyzed the data using this frame. There are categories of MPO-ness. And here is how we have constructed this profile. Looking at this slide right here, you have 4 questions, and you can try this for yourself. We asked respondents these questions. On a scale of 1 to 7, how much you disagree or agree, would you say that on the overall you have a positive view of marriage? So you can try it yourself, just take a mental note of how you will be answering this, and later I'll review perhaps which category you yourself fall under in terms of MPO-ness. And what about a positive view of parenthood? And if you are unmarried today, will you say that you want to get married? And if you are already married, do you want to be married? Or if you don't have children, do you want to be a parent? And if you already are, would you say that you wanted to be a parent? So if you have answered strongly disagree, or somewhat disagree and neutral to all four statements, you would belong to the non-MPO category. For you have shown towards this marriage and parenthood either a disinterest or even a little bit of disdain. Like you don't think this is something important, you don't think that this is a positive thing for life or for society, or just for yourself. And if you have answered agree or strongly agree to all four statements, then you would probably be classified under high MPO category, where you have strong aspirations for marriage and also a very positive view of both marriage and parenthood. And if your answers are somewhat mixed, like most of our respondents, then you would find yourself under the moderate MPO category, as you are neither against nor enthusiastic about marriage and parenthood. So this is our breakdown of our respondents. About 1/3 are classified to have high MPO. The majority, 54%, are moderate MPO, and slightly more than 1 in 10 fall under the non-MPO segment. So just a quick show of hands, how many of you all, like if you all remember your answers, find yourselves under high MPO? Okay, well, there's quite a lot here. What about moderates, moderate MPO? And non-MPO, anyone? Okay, if you are shy about it, it's okay. Yeah. So looking at this MPO is actually quite important, because for the rest of this presentation, you will see how it actually affects people's views on marriage, parenthood, and success. So I talked about the first finding, the key finding about those with a higher view of marriage and parenthood are less likely to delay marriage. On the overall, 45% of our respondents say that they have chosen or will choose to delay marriage. And this is something that is quite different if you look at those who are unmarried and those who are married. Among the unmarried, the openness to delay marriage is very high. It's actually 9 in 10. And for the singles, actually almost 7 in 10 say that they are choosing to delay marriage for many different reasons. Yeah, and this inclination to delay is actually similar across the sexes. But if you look at it across the MPO profiles, you will see that for the high MPO, they are less likely than the overall population to choose to delay marriage. And for the non-MPO, they have a lesser proportion of people who say that they are choosing to delay, not because they think that way necessarily, but probably because they did not even indicate an interest in marriage in the first place. Yeah, so for them who qualify in this statistic, they are those who answered neutral towards aspiration for marriage. And that's why the figures look like this. Yeah, and if we look at the profile for the men, according to the MPO, again, you see the same pattern. The higher the MPO, the less likely to say that they are choosing to delay marriage. But compared to the overall level, they are again lower in terms of openness to delaying marriage, and only about 55% as compared to 66% earlier. Over to the women, again, high MPO women are less likely to say so, but if you noticed, women on the overall are more inclined to say that they are delaying marriage, or they are choosing to do so. That said, it's still lower than the 66% overall for the high MPO folks. And over here is the conceptions of marriage. So we look at 12 elements of marriage, like what do the respondents think is important to define a marriage. So we asked the respondents to rate each of these elements on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being extremely important an element for marriage. And looking at the mean score, we have faithfulness and shared morals emerging as the top 2 elements, and companionship and dependence followed very closely. Intimacy made it to the top 5. Each of these have at least a 3.8 out of 5 in importance for marriage. Yeah, and if you're trying to look for where does children stand in terms of these elements, they are actually at number 10 over there out of 12. So this suggests that on the overall, respondents don't really feel that or consider children to be an essential part of marriage. But this picture changes when you look at the high MPO people. Yeah, so if you look at it this way, the non-MPO indicated a perhaps more romanticized picture of marriage than the high MPO. They place having someone to rely on in a much higher position, third place. And on the other hand, the high MPO folks, they draw a greater sense of fulfillment from marriage itself. And they are also more likely to say that having children is a more important element in marriage, ranking somewhere in the mid-tier, 7th out of 12. And I also asked them, like, what do they think about this statement? Unless a couple is infertile, having children is a natural next step in marriage. On the overall, more than 6 in 10 agreed. The non-MPO is pretty split about this, but a high number of them are actually inclined towards disagreeing. At least 4 in 10 of them disagreed. While the high MPO, 8 in 10 feel that it is indeed a natural next step in marriage to have children. So what do they think about parenthood? Does it take marriage into a higher level? Almost 3 in 4 agree. Again, the non-MPOs are quite split, about 1/3 across each of the answers that they can give. And the high MPOs are almost unanimously in agreement with this. More than about 9 in 10 of them agree with this statement. So what do all this say? It may not be a surprise to see that the high MPO folks are a lot more interested and positive in their views towards marriage and parenthood, but they do tell us one thing, that is MPO levels do affect how one thinks and conceives the idea of marriage, and also later on parenthood. So if we compare in a summary between the two of them for marriage, for the high MPOs, marriage is more than just a relationship between two people, between a man and a woman. It is a meaningful institution that provides stability in identity and belonging. And it's also seen as a natural context for having children, and parenthood is much more likely to register as an essential part of marriage to them. On the other hand, non-MPO individuals might view marriage more as an optional life choice, not a core life goal to achieve. And also it's more primarily about companionship. And there is no inherent link to having children when it comes to marriage. So we also asked about what do they think about what makes an excellent parent, or what is excellent parenting. So on this, we gave them 11 items. Again, we asked them to rate the importance from a scale of 1 to 5. And safety and stability or presence-related items emerged as the top 4. And when we try to look at the comparison between the mothers, how mothers answered this and how fathers answered, we noticed that there's relatively fewer divergence in views. Yeah, only 2 areas, and one of them is to a very small statistical significance, is having a stable marriage. So mothers tend to rate it a bit higher, but at the same time, if you look at the rank, they actually rank the same, second most important trait. Yeah, but mothers do prize having a close relationship with the children more than the fathers do. If we look at this in terms of MPO-ness, you see that the picture changes quite significantly. The non-MPO would value marriage lesser, and they will privilege the whole idea of being a parent who is being able to nurture the child in terms of providing them with boundaries, discipline boundaries, or education, how to be a good person, as a more important trait of excellent parenting. While the high MPOs, they value marriage stability a lot more, and also having a closer relationship with the children. And we asked them about the ideals. Yeah, so is it an ideal for children to be raised within a marriage? Almost 8 in 10 agreed with this view on the overall. Again, there's more disagreement and a lower optimism observed among the non-MPOs. About 1 in 4 of them disagreed, which is significantly lesser from those who are moderate and high MPO. So if I look at them again as a summary, you will see that the high MPOs would indeed value marriage as an institution for parenting and a suitable context for it. On the other hand, non-MPOs have a lower view of marriage as something for parenthood or for children. And if you read our report, you will see that the high MPOs place a higher importance on every factor, and that's expected because they are more interested in parenthood after all. So for this part is the part where maybe it gets the policymakers' interest. We are looking at some of the factors that will discourage people from having children in Singapore. So we asked them 13 different items. Yeah, and finance-related items emerged as the top 3. Yet, interestingly, if you look at the table, you realize that disruptions to career actually rank much lower at 10 out of 13. So what does this suggest? It might suggest that while people are concerned about affordability as a parent in Singapore, they are possibly open to more creative and flexible work arrangements in order to achieve that, because they are not so concerned about immediate disruptions to career. And if we look at this across the MPO levels, the high MPOs are more concerned with things like potential health issues for the children, while the non-MPOs, that is not so much of a concern, possibly because they didn't really think of this as a real situation, more hypothetical to them since they are less likely to want children. And for the non-MPOs, they seem to be more pessimistic about the world we live in, and they therefore say that they do not want to bring children into such a suffering world. So they are also less optimistic about their ability to provide financially for the children. So we also asked them about, does parenthood give you a sense of purpose in life? And not surprisingly, the high MPOs are very overwhelmingly in agreement with such a statement. They say, yes, parenthood does give me a great sense of purpose. But 1/3 of the non-MPOs would disagree, another 1/3 very neutral about this. So it does seem like a sense of purpose, fulfillment, or meaning behind parenthood helps the high MPO cushion the impact of these various factors that would discourage someone from becoming a parent. The non-MPOs are a lot more impacted and sensitive to each factor. They scored a lot more for each of them as compared to those with high MPOs. And they appear a lot more pessimistic and less confident about either themselves being a good parent or their future or current spouse being a good parent. And now to the more contentious question. Who would sacrifice more in a marriage? Yeah, well, most of our respondents are kind of neutral on this, but for those who did give a preference, most of them lean towards the wives, of course. 4 in 10 say that wives will do so, only 1 in 10 say that husbands do so. And interestingly, women are almost twice as likely than men to say that the wives will sacrifice more. If you look at it across the different ways of categorizing the men, across all categories, men are a lot less likely to say that the wives are the ones sacrificing more. But in particular, if you look at the non-MPO, they are the special group because they are the only ones that indicated the husbands would actually sacrifice more in marriage. Across the board, neutrality is pretty high for the men. On the opposite end, if you look at the women, it's really a different picture. Across all of them, the majority of the women say that wives are the ones who give up more in marriage. And 1 in 2 high MPO women do not lean on either side of this. Only about 4 in 10 say so. Yeah, so this, if you compare to the previous chart, stands in great contrast. Yeah, so obviously we have a big difference in terms of how men and women look at themselves in a marriage, like how much they're giving and stuff. So I think this is an area where the two sexes have to start talking about it better, yeah, and not try to run on their own track. And this will sow more division in the society and in family. And when we look at parenthood, the picture is very similar. Again, more women say that mothers will sacrifice more in parenthood. There's a bit lesser in terms of people who say that fathers give more in parenthood. Again, when we look at it across the various male groups, neutrality dominates their answers. The moderate MPO and married men are most likely to say that mothers will sacrifice more. But this time, the non-MPOs are actually the least likely among the men to say that fathers sacrifice more in parenthood. So why the difference over here? My suspicion is that the non-MPOs do not see the inherent connection between marriage and parenthood in the first place. And that's why when they answer across these two questions, it's likely that they are going to answer it quite differently. And similarly for the women, again, a lot more women are going to say that mothers sacrifice more in parenthood. The pattern is similar across the board. And they are most likely to be neutral about it, similar to the non-MPO men. Yeah, so moving on to the markers of success, we have given them 14 items in total, rating in the same way on the 5-point scale. So character emerged to be the top marker of success, followed by work-life balance, being contented, being close to family, followed next, and then owning a house, which sounds very Singaporean. Being married and having children are ranked 12th and 14th. So the results actually confirm my suspicion that being married and being a parent does not register very highly in the Singaporean dream. So, and comparing across the non-MPO and high MPO, we actually see something quite interesting. The non-MPOs are more likely to prioritize having more money. So they rank this as a pretty high marker, 5th amongst the 14, while the MPO ranked it at the second last, 13th place. The non-MPO, on the other hand, would place being a parent or being married at the lower end, all the way at the end, while the high MPO, they still didn't register this as the most important thing for them, but it moves up quite significantly to the 9th and 11th positions, respectively. We also ran our data through some regression models. We wanted to understand whether or not it's correlation, or do we have some kind of predictive ability if we look at how someone looks at markers of success. And it's quite interesting. We did find something. For the non-MPO paradigm, if people answered higher in terms of traveling the world, having lots of money, or being highly educated in comparison to the other markers that they have also scored, then the rates of them being non-MPO increases. So traveling the world as a marker of success actually increases it the most, 35%. Yeah, on the other hand, there are 5 markers that increases the probability of someone being classified as high MPO. Of course, the strongest two are having children and being married. Yeah, these two each more than double the chances of someone being classified as high MPO. These two predictors do not exhibit any problematic multicollinearity, but they do actually reflect a real substantive relationship. Interestingly, being an upright person is also a marker that increases the chances for high MPO. And being close to family is 31%, while having a successful career is at 25%. All in all, if we look at this across whatever I've said, right? Non-MPO and high MPO, these categories are more than just categories. They seem to frame how one understands marriage, parenthood, and success in life. So to the high MPO, marriage is really not just an optional thing. To them, it's a core life goal. It's an institution and a foundation for family life and even a source of meaning. And parenting to them is deeply rewarding. So even though there are the same kind of difficulties that we might face as a parent, they are less deterred in terms of being wanting to have more kids or wanting to have kids. And they also tend to prioritize character, marriage, and children in terms of what makes a successful life. So to them, these are integral parts of what makes a beautiful life for them, or their form of Singaporean dream. And what does all this mean to us? I think that if we look at all this in total, we will realize that, and we can see that the various financial support from the government offered to help parents and large families have been helpful, especially since the top 3 concerns that affect a person's or cause someone to delay or discourage someone to be a parent seem to be finance related. But they seem to only help those who already desire having a larger family or want marriage and parenthood in the first place. So to see a greater impact or to be more effective in lifting our total fertility rate, we must have a family-inclusive vision of success. And I don't say this in terms of a utilitarian approach to wanting to create this more holistic view of success, because we do need to rediscover the wealth of family life. So it could look a bit like acknowledging the fact that being a parent is going to make our lives a lot more chaotic, make us a lot more busy, and sometimes it might also make us feel like we are losing a part of ourselves. But this loss can be in a positive and transformative way. And I myself can attest to that. So perhaps with such a view, a more high MPO oriented one, we can better attain sustainable human flourishing and national flourishing. And that will take us from where we are today to SG 100 and beyond.